SwayamPrabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Yeah. So using this like on filter over here, you can configure on what like event you want the person to run the program, right? You want the person to run the pipeline. So over here, there will be some sort of syntax which will tell, hey, if the user ID is cb-riaz ahmed, only then you can allow it to do. There are certain syntaxes that like allow you to do that. You have to dig a little bit deeper to figure out what exactly is the syntax, but you can do it. Pull request target. No, you have to dig a little deeper. So, but it's possible. Like what you're saying is possible, because if you can do it based on pull requests, push requests, merge PRs, and all that, of course you can do it based on like user level. Your use case is generally not done in industry, because in industry it's not like if he does it you have to run this command. It's generally not like that. In the industry, that the types of filters that we use are a pull request based, or merge based, or push request based, or like remote tracking based. So only in these sort of scenarios we'll trigger the pipeline. So coming back here, I'll explain each command. So my intention was that I would have you guys figure out the command to install Ruby, install Brakeman, run Brakeman. But I took up too much time for the DevOps explanation, so I'll skip all that. What? Ruby. 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 That red color gem. Ruby. Ruby on Rails. Ruby is a programming language like Java or Python. You have a programming language called Ruby. Okay, and there is a framework on top of which you run Ruby code. For example, if you want to run Java code, you need to have Gradle or Maven. These are the frameworks on top of which you run application code. Similarly, for Ruby, you can't just, I mean, you can run Ruby code, but if you want to host a web application or an entire application on Ruby, you need Rails, Rails. That's a framework on top of which you will be running the Ruby code. Yeah. So basically, Rails will provide you the web application, like multi-tenancy and all that Rails will provide. Ruby will tell the business logic, like what to do with the request and all that. Okay, so we'll skip all these commands. Have you heard of git clone? So what git clone will do is, whatever link you pass here, which is a GitHub link or which is a repository link, not necessarily GitHub, it will clone that repository and make a copy of it, as long as the repository is public. If the repository is private, you have to set up GitHub authentication. Only after you authenticate that, hey, I am the owner of this repository, you can clone it. Right. For example, over here, I'm trying to clone a repository called rails.git. So I'll show you something interesting. This is basically a repository called Rails Goat, Goat. Right. So what this repository basically does is, it's a vulnerable version of the Ruby on Rails framework. Why would someone want to develop a wantedly vulnerable version of a framework like this? Can anyone guess? Why would I want to wantedly develop something which is vulnerable? No, for talks like this. In talks like this, I cannot bring a secure application and show that I can break it because it's secure. If I can break a secure application, I'm not supposed to be here. I'm supposed to be in my company fixing it, right? So basically, so you have DVPW, a damn vulnerable Python web application, DVW, a damn vulnerable web application. These instances are built to teach you web security, to teach you how to break into these applications. It's wantedly built like that, right? So this is Rails Goat. This is a custom fork of Rails Goat. By fork, I mean, let's say there's a plate of 10 idlis and you take one idli. That's called a fork, right? So essentially, you have one repository. You'll just clone it and start your own repository from there. So essentially this is what I'm trying to show. So this is right here, but fine. So you can think of it like this, right? There is a straight line like this on which the main repository is running. There's a huge straight line. I'm going to take a fork of it and run my own repository from here. So the main line will be here and my a forked repository will be here. At like any time during my time in which I'm using the repository, I can try and merge my repository with the main one through a pull request. A pull request is basically where you take one branch, which is a forked branch, a different branch, and try to merge that branch with your main branch. So basically, you don't have differences in code between the two branches once you merge it. Like once you merge it, the two branches will have the same code. However, if there is a difference in code, you will be able to see it like this. Yeah, you see this with 7 additions and 0 deletions. This is how you'll be able to see the code between two branches if there are changes. So let's say my main branch is this, and this is the branch I'm trying to merge with the main branch. So when I'm trying to do a merge, it will tell me, hey, there are 0 deletions, which means 0 lines of code are deleted, but there are 7 additions. 7 lines of code have been added or modified. So that's essentially how Git works, right? So this is a green in color. You can't see it here, but all of this will be highlighted in green color, very light green. It's not visible here. So if you open up the repository in GitLab, right, you will be able to see all the different tabs of here like manage, plan, code, build. Our pipelines come under the build stage under the pipelines. Right? So here you'll be able to see all the different pipelines I've run for init, update, update, etc., etc., etc. And as you remember, you asked the question, why can't I run it on a terminal? I won't have this visibility in a terminal. Like how many different pipelines were run? Why did my pipeline go wrong, etc., etc. Which is why we have this CI tool, the continuous like integration tool. Right? Let's edit this. And yeah, so now we are going to clone this Rails goat, which I told you, the intentionally like vulnerable Rails application, into a folder called web app over here. You can name it anything you want, web app Z, web app 1, anything. So we are going to clone this repository. It's a public repository, which is why I was able to access it when I opened it in a new tab. So after this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to cd into this folder, change directory. So which means you're going into that folder, and then I'm going to run a command called apt update. Why apt update is necessary is because any instance that you spawn up will not have all the updated packages. You have to open up the instance and then update it once. So it will talk to the Ubuntu server, Fedora server, Debian server, etc., etc., and it'll ask, hey, this version for this package I have. What version do you have? It'll ask. Then the server will say, I have this version. Do you want it? Which is where I say -y over here, yes. To say that yes, I want to upgrade the version, or yes, I want to install this package. One limitation of a pipeline is it's not interactive. As she said, a Linux terminal is interactive. It can ask you questions. You can answer it over here. If I don't do this -y over here, somewhere during the installation, it will ask me a question. Do you want to install this? Enter yes or no. When a pipeline is running, I don't have access to the code, which is why preemptively I say yes, I want to install using the -y tag. So pipelines, while they're not interactive, there are workarounds that are always present in every single repository, such as this -y tag, to make sure that that interaction element you can give your input before you run the application itself. Right. So now we are running apt update to download all the latest packages. Now, downloading the packages does not mean I'm installing the packages. I'm downloading the latest versions of the package as an index file. For example, this package, this version, this package, this version, just that. That's what apt apt update does. When I run apt install, that is when it will install all the latest dependencies. It will take 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, etc. But here what I'm going to say is I don't want to install everything. I want to install Ruby full. Remember I said we are running Ruby on Rails. So I want to install Ruby full with a -y tag because somewhere in the installation process, it'll ask me a question. Do you want to install or not? I want to say yes, which is why I'm going to say -y here. And up to this point, things are pretty clear. I'm just downloading a repository and installing Ruby. These are two separate tasks. After this, there is something called gem install break. In Python, have you heard of pip? So what is pip? Package installer. Similarly, for Ruby, there is gem. Pip is gem for Ruby. It makes sense because Ruby is a gem, right? Red color Ruby. That's why they call it gem. So you do gem install Brakeman. Brakeman is the name of the security tool that we want to run, right? So gem install Brakeman. You cannot specify the version. If you want, remove it. If you want, keep it. I just mentioned the version. After running this, every tool will have a help command or a man page. It's called man page is basically which will tell you how to run the tool. Generally, it's -h. It will open the help page. You can use any. You can use -help or Brakeman man. Brakeman space man, which will give you the man page of it. So after you run the help command and figure out what are the different commands that are there, I am going to run Brakeman -f JSON t result.json. So this is called a pipe operator. What a pipe operator does is everything to the left of this will be run before this command is being run, right? So this will output a JSON file, and this JSON file is taken as an input for this command, and this result of JSON is then created. So basically, whatever JSON output you see on screen, I'm storing it in a JSON file. That's all I'm doing using the T command. So that's basically what this does. Is it correct? Python syntax is correct. Now, when I do a commit changes, will this run? I'll share you access to the code, don't worry. In fact, use this link. github.com/r1yaz/ssn_acm_DevSecOps. It will give you access to all the code that I'm using in this lab. If I zoom this, that probably won't zoom. Yeah, I know. They gave me a journal. So this is the link for the repository where you will find all the source code that all the code that I am showing you live. Yeah. So I'll say a commit message saying Brakeman run on Rails good -1, and here this asks me which branch do I want to commit to. Remember I said I can fork my own branch. Once I fork my own branch, I can commit changes to my own branch and then merge it with the master. Now, where this is helpful is if you have a team of 10 software developers, you can't have 10 developers working on the same main branch because 2 of them might commit at the same time and it will cause a commit clash, which is where all the branches feature comes in handy. Each developer will have their own branch. They'll do whatever they want with their branch. After they're sure that the changes they've made is exactly the change which the PM has requested, they will raise a pull request. A merge request, a pull request basically from the main branch to their own branch. So basically the developers branch is here. This is the main branch. So the developer will be like, hey, I've made the changes I want over here, and I want to merge it to this. And then a senior developer will come and review it and say, okay, fine, this is good, this will work, merge. Once they merge, this branch will then be merged with this branch. The branch won't get deleted, it will still exist. But these two branches, instead of being like this branch being ahead and this branch being behind, it will come to the same page because they're the same branch, right? SCM takes a bit to understand. Once you work with SCM, you'll understand. No matter how much I do this, it won't make sense much. As only after you run the commands git push, git merge, git raise PR, only then it will make sense. But yeah, so if I commit these changes, will the pipeline run? Will the pipeline run? Or will it get cancelled? Or will it not run? What's the name of the file? Yeah. Okay. The answer is right here for you guys. I'm using pipeline editor, which means the pipeline will run. If I just create an update directly to the pipeline file, like will it run then? Any clue? It will run then also. Because remember I said the name of the file is gitlab-ci.yml. As long as the name of the file is the name of the default file, any change I make to the file will trigger a pipeline, no matter what I do. If I create a separate .yml file saying riaz.yml, no matter how many changes I make to that riaz.yml file, the pipeline won't run unless I go and trigger the pipeline. So every repository has a default file called .gitlab-ci.yml. If you change it, the pipeline runs. readme.md. If you change the readme.md file, you see this? This is the readme.md file. Any change I make to readme.md file will be reflected over here in my repository's home page. So essentially, that's how Git works, right? So if I make a commit here, it will run the pipeline. So you can see here, in pipeline status. Yeah, so pipeline number something is running for this commit. So I can directly say view pipeline, and it will take me to the build job over here, right? So if I click on build job, it will show me the Linux terminal where all the commands are being executed. So it won't show you one by one command. It will quickly execute everything and then show you, because the number of commands we've given is rather small, right? You just give it a minute or two. Yeah, done. So why is it exiting? Why is it like exiting with error code 1? Any guesses? Okay, I'll do one thing. I'll explain up till here, and then you tell me why it exits with error code 1, right? Okay. First was echo welcome to SSN. Then was touch ACM, LS, PWD, git clone. Now we are doing a git clone command. All of this Rails goat is being cloned into like web app. We are feeding into web app. We are running apt update, right? So it will run all get requests to Debian. Remember I said the Debian server. These are the links for the Debian servers. So it will run all the fetch the package lists and then update the package list. Now when I run apn, like apt install ruby full, it will install the entire Ruby stack over here in all of these commands over here. After this, I'm saying gem install brakeman. It will install brakeman, done over here. And brakeman-h will tell me how to run brakeman. As you can see here, usage, brakeman options. Like -n means no threads, -p means you're telling the path before itself. You can specify which rails to run for brakeman. And there are a lot of options over here. We'll just skip all this. This is not relevant for us. So now over here, what I'm running is I'm running brakeman on this Rails goat repository, which is the vulnerable repository. Remember, I cd'd into web app, which means I'm inside the vulnerable repository now, which is where I'm running brakeman, and I'm storing the output in results.json. So this is where the scan is being run. All of this is where the scan is being run. And somewhere over here, the scan is completed over here. See, text finish, collecting results. This is the report. The report will be a JSON file. A JSON file is basically a key pair attribute sort of a thing. This is the key, that's the value. Key value, key value, key value. So this is just a list of basically all the keys and the values that the repository scan has found. So there are 19 total security warnings. These are all the scans that have been run, like basic authentication scans, the CSRF scans, etc., etc. I'll just skip all this. And yeah, so this is one of the warnings that has found. Remote code execution. Anyone knows what RCE is? So what is RCE? Yeah, something like that. So RCE is basically in a simple example. This is being run in a Linux terminal somewhere, right? Remember I said, if I can execute a command on that without access to the pipeline or without access to the admin interface, it's an RCE, remote code execution. So it has found a remote code execution inside this file, password resets controller.ruby. So my job as a security engineer in my company is to find all these vulnerabilities and fix them. So I'll go into the code, see why there is a remote code execution. So remote code execution happens when you do an operating system call without passing parameters into it. Yes? No issues. So the different vulnerabilities that exist here, to fix them, you have to figure out where in the code this particular vulnerability originates from. Remote code execution happens because of an unsafe call to operating system calls. For example, if you're trying to run ls and I do ls pipe cat/etc/password, right? What I'm doing is, you show me the ls, fine, but I'm appending one more command to it and saying also show me your passwords file. That's how RC is done. So there is an RC vulnerability inside this Rails goat expected. It is supposed to be a vulnerable application. And then what it does is, it will store all of this in a results.json, in a results.json file, and then it exits over here. Why does it exit? Any idea now? Why does the pipeline fail? As you can see over here, the pipeline has failed. There is an X over here. Why did the pipeline fail? Our previous pipeline succeeded when we ran just CD and the basic commands. Why did this pipeline fail? Any clue? Just guess. Why did it fail? Why should this pipeline fail? Think from an organization perspective. If you get this right, I'll give you an internship. Okay, so I'll tell. So think from an organizational perspective. I am running the DevSecOps pipeline. This has failed, which means something has gone wrong with the pipeline. Here, the only thing that has gone wrong is it has found some vulnerabilities. If a security scan finds vulnerabilities, should the pipeline be allowed to succeed and proceed to deploying the application, or should it fail? It should fail. That's exactly what has happened over here. Exit code 1, because there are vulnerabilities found, the pipeline has failed. Anything beyond this will never be executed. Over here, it's the pipeline will fail and say, that's it. So go back, fix the vulnerabilities, then come back. And then you have to rerun the scan. Only then will you see exit code 0. Oh, yeah. All of these are vulnerabilities. Everything you see here are vulnerabilities. How do I know? Unsafe reflection, remote code execution. All of these are vulnerabilities. And possible command injection, it's a vulnerability. Format validation, it's a vulnerability. Not exactly, but fine. Mass assignment, this is a vulnerability. So when you run a security tool which is supposed to find vulnerabilities, it will give you vulnerabilities. It's not going to give you something else, right? So yeah, this is the very simple overview of what the DevSecOps pipeline should look like. And now I'll show you what my pipeline looks like. There is one more code that I wanted to show you. I can't explain it as much as I did right now, but similar to what we did for Ruby on Rails, you guys are more accustomed with Python, right? I'll show for Python, right? So for Python, I'll just open directly the YML file and explain. So there's git clone dvpwa. Dvpwa is a damp, vulnerable Python web application. It's an intentionally vulnerable web application built using Python. After that, I'm cding into the dvpwa file and I'm installing Bandit, pip, using pip, not gem. This is Python, right? And if you notice, this line is extra over here. Image colon Python 3.6. Why have I included this? If you just think about that, and right now pip3 install Bandit, basically it installs Bandit, and then I'm going to run Bandit on this repository dvpwa. This is the output of the pwd command. Remember, we ran pwbuild / sample whatever dvpwa. Whatever I've cloned here, I'm just going to run Bandit inside that. It will generate the report. What does this do? Image Python 3.6. Any ideas? Version 1. So why am I just passing the Python? Where have I installed Python? Remember last time we installed Ruby? Why haven't I installed Python? This is where pipelines are effective, because in pipelines there is something called Dockerized containers. I don't have to install a Python using this step. I can just say use the image of Python 3.6, which means a pre-built image of Python 3.6 is taken and then used. I'll show you that in the pipeline scan over here. So this is the latest pipeline that I ran 16 hours ago. So if you see the pipeline, there was one build, which was the Bandit scan. Let's open it up. This is the build job stage. And this is basically the whole scan, right? So I'll show you where the Python is being used. Yeah. So pulling Docker image Python 3.6. Because I said the image is Python 3.6 here, it pulls the Docker image of Python 3.6 and uses that to run the Python commands. Similarly, I can do for Ruby. All you have to do is instead of installing Ruby, just type Docker Ruby. Ruby official image is here. Now what you need to do is figure out the version that you want. This is in see 3.3.0 preview 1-bookmark. Now what you have to do is like image colon this entire thing 3.3.0 preview 1-bookmark. It will use that particular Ruby image for you, and you don't have to install Ruby. The reason why all of this is there is because I don't want to waste time, precious time, installing things inside a pipeline. Instead, what we do in the industry is we create Docker containers for every single thing. Docker container on how to prepare idli, Docker container for dosa, Docker container for literally everything you want. So that every time someone wants to install Python, we don't tell them run this command, do this, do that. No. We just tell them take this container, run the container. It will take care of everything for you. That's the power of Docker. Right? So you can install literally anything in the world you want inside any pipeline you want using just the image tag. It will use that image. Kubernetes. Okay. So do you know how one Docker container can be managed easily? But when there are multiple Docker containers, you need it's like a multi-cluster setup. That's a completely different thing. If you ask me Kubernetes, I can explain it in huge, but to simplify the Kubernetes, what I can say is managing multiple containers is done using Kubernetes. K8s it's called. That's simply. So yeah, that's it. If you see here, this is where it pulls like the Python repository. It takes it clones dvpwa. It goes inside. It installs Bandit. If I don't mention Python 3.6, this pip3 will fail because there is no Python environment for pip3. Pip3 won't even be there. So what I have to do is I have to first make sure that Python 3.6 is being used and then say pip3 install Bandit. Like otherwise it won't work. And then once it is installed, you basically run the Bandit scan, the Bandit -r thing. And once it runs, it shows one medium vulnerability, use of insecure MD2. These are hashing algorithms, MD2, MD4, MD5, etc. And the scan fails because at least one vulnerability is found. This is another sample use of the DevSecOps pipeline. I think yeah, I'm not allowed to show the entire source code from my company, but I can show you an example code, right? Yeah. So this is what the output of I don't have the code with me, but maybe I can. Yeah, this is something which is what devs. Can you guys see this? Yeah. So this is exactly what an enterprise grade DevSecOps pipeline will look like. For example, the agile teams will first use Jira to figure out where to deploy what, etc., all that. And then inside Git, there is something called Git leaks, which will detect all the secrets you commit into a repository. For example, if um, if you want to access AWS through your command line, you need to have an access key and a secret key. These two keys are needed, right? If you have to keep these keys a secret key. If you don't keep them secret, I can use your AWS account, right? But some developers don't know this. What they'll do is they'll commit these keys into the repository and make it public. So to detect all these things, I use something called Git leaks, right? So first, the secrets will be detected. This space is called Git leaks. Next is called SBOM, Software Bill of Materials. Why Software Bill of Materials is necessary? Let's say there's a zero-day attack. Do you know what a zero-day attack is? Out of nowhere, there's an attack on one package, right? And I don't know where in my software that package is being used, which is where the SBOM is used. SBOM will tell me exactly what are the dependencies of my software and where the dependencies are there. Log4j, anyone heard of it? Log4j, right? So in my company, when Log4j happened, we had no idea. We had no idea what are the dependencies we have on our software. So what we did, we built an SBOM, and in the SBOM, we just search Log4j. It will tell you what all microservices or like the monolithic applications are running Log4j. And then you have SAST, Static Application Security Scan. Unit test is done by the QA team. You have Docker file scan. This will scan for security vulnerabilities inside the Docker file itself. Remember how you found a Docker file for Python? Every Docker file basically has a set of commands. Instead of running the commands yourself, you'll like run it as a container. So when I'm talking about a Docker file scan, you're running a security scan on the commands inside a Docker file. To install Python, if I add one command there to cat etc password, you won't know. You will install Python and keep moving on, but I'll have your passwords file, right? So this Docker file scan will scan your Docker file, which is used to install whatever Docker things, and will tell me what are the vulnerabilities inside that. Then you have build. After all these scans are done, you'll do build. You should not run SAST after building, because SAST is a static scan. It's run on the code base. It's useless to build, deploy, and then run SAST, because SAST by itself means you're running a scan on the code. Your code is ready as soon as the developer is done with his Jira ticket and commits the code into the repository. Basically, you can exchange this with this. No worries. You can skip these two anyhow you want. After all of this is being done. I don't have time to cover everything, so I'll just say what DAST is. DAST is Dynamic Application Security Scanning. This cannot be done over here, because to run DAST, you need to have a running instance of the application. For example, if you're having a web application, it should be deployed somewhere. Unless it's deployed somewhere, you cannot run DAST. You can run SAST on the source code. DAST is run on the application itself. You can't run DAST on source code because it's a dynamic testing. Right? Only if the application is running, you have the URLs, you have the cookies, you have the requests, you can run DAST. DAST uses tools like burpsuit, Nikto, OASP-Zap. These are certain tools that you can use to run DAST. For SAST, basically what we did right now is SAST. Brakeman, Bandit, all these are SAST scans. And smoke testing, API testing, let's just skip all this. Kubernetes over here. KA test, CI scan. Kubernetes manifest scan, all of this happens over here. So this is what an enterprise grade CI/CD pipeline will look like. After all of this, right, there are two deployments being done. One is in the test environment first. First, you will test if all of this works properly. Only after that, you'll go to the production environment and deploy it here, and then you'll monitor these two environments. So the code for this probably be 2,000, 3,000 lines strong. This pipeline will take 10 minutes, 15 minutes to run. This cannot be included in the pipeline. DAST takes hours to run. So it's not smart to include DAST inside a DevSecOps pipeline. This is done separately. So yeah, that's all about DevSecOps. Any questions? Any questions, guys? You can ask me questions related to your career or like anything of the stuff we've covered so far as well. Oh yeah, just access this link, right? tiny.cc/careers in cybersec. So I have a PDF for all of you with a lot of useful cybersecurity resources which you can use to learn and stay safe on the internet. So that will help you all. If you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, tiny.cc/Riaz capital L capital I. Sorry, I'm in the middle of a talk. Can I call you later? Yeah, okay, sure. Yeah. Any questions so far? No, because web development is the part where you actually develop the web application. DevOps is the part where you deploy the web application. These two are not really, you don't need to know one to know the other. It's good if you know how it works, but it's not needed at all. For DevOps, the basic skills that you need is scripting, bash, networking. You need to know network, so don't skip your network. Basically, that's it. A bit of Docker, a bit of Terraform, all that, but that's all you need for DevOps. Huh? What's a good place to learn DevOps? A GitHub Academy, Git CI Academy, Udemy, all of these are good places to learn DevOps. Internship for students. So at Chargebee, we have internships at the security team. Right now, we already have one intern who's working with us, but maybe in the next 6 months or something, we might be looking again for interns for our team. For interns, if you know your fund, see, I don't expect you to come and show me a DevSecOps pipeline and tell I know security. If you know it, awesome, we're definitely going to hire you. But have your fundamentals correct. Networks, TCP, DNS, port. For example, port 80, like what does it represent? Port 443, like what does it represent? HTTPS. Basic stuff, just this. And if you have some interesting projects to your name, that would be good, because otherwise, anything at all. See, cybersecurity, the thing about security is, it's a huge domain. So you can't just be like, I've learned security, right? If you know web application security, you need, that will help you win from the web application perspective of things. Let's say if you know Docker security, you can help the DevOps team. So any background you come from, you just need to know a bit of security, which will help you, take all that previous knowledge you have and put it into a perspective of security. That's all. So I didn't, like when I graduated, I wasn't like I'm going into DevSecOps, I'm going into VAPT. No, I just went just like that, and things just fall in line. Is like what I'm trying to say. Capital L, capital I, and the R must be capital. That's my LinkedIn profile. In terms of projects, have good projects. Don't copy paste code from internet and say it's your project. I'll find out. So have unique projects. For example, whatever I've done here, take my code, improvise it, make it more useful. For example, let's say inside the college, you're learning Java or something, build a Docker container for Java. That's enough. Basically, like whatever you do to install Java, just take those commands, learn how to create a container, put those commands inside. That's it. Your Java container is ready. So things like this will help. Knowledge of the cloud concept is also very helpful. For example, AWS EC2, RWS, SNS, simple notification service. What are all the different AWS services that, how can I use these services? Build an AWS project. For example, if I create a push request to my GitHub repository, I want an SMS notification. Do that. Simple. EC2. No. So AWS, so the cloud computing concepts are the same. You can rent instances, you can have a relational database service. They're the same concept. Every vendor will implement it differently. AWS has EC2, like Azure has compute instances. Google Cloud has something similar. They just name it differently. So if you learn AWS EC2, you basically know everything else. You can work cross-platform is what I would say. They're the same thing basically. Any other questions? Anything related to your career, or how you plan to proceed forward with security? My experiences in security, anything at all. Don't feel shy. I was once of you guys. I was sitting there, so I know. Good question. So I'll tell you what I did. 5 years back, when I was in SSN, I skipped DSA. I don't know linked lists. I don't know heaps. I don't know trees. I don't know anything. I skipped it. So my goal was, I'm going to work in a security company. If you're going to ask me a DSA question, I'll walk out, because I don't know DSA. Very frankly, I skipped any interview that came to me. I didn't know how to code. Like, I didn't focus on that because my passion was security. My passion was that I want to learn how to break a company. I want to learn how to secure the company. That was my passion. So I took the risk that I would spend all my time learning security, but not touching like the software development side of things. I don't want to like to study DSA. So what I did, many trails and failures, many companies came. So I used to approach them individually and ask, do you have internships for security? Do you have full-time roles for security? About 80% of them will say, security is a too of a narrow field. You won't get entry opportunity, blah, blah, blah. But, um, but then a startup came and they hired me for their first security roles. I was the first security like hire for their startup. So what I'm trying to say is entry level opportunities in cybersecurity are rare because would you trust your banking to a fresh banker or an experienced banker? Why? Fresh bankers also there, no? Even they need opportunities, no? Concept here is banking. It's a very secure thing. You can't play with people's money. Similarly, you can't play with the company's, like the security of a company. So, which is why they don't hire freshers for security. However, if you prove to them that I have the knowledge, I've done the projects, I know what I'm doing, then they'll hire you simply. Hmm? How do you do that? Through all of the things that I just said. Learn the fundamentals, have projects, do certifications. I'll give you access to my blog. Type this. This should work. Okay, type tiny.cc/capital RIYAZ. It will take you to a page like this. Replace this INC with R1YAZ. And you'll have access to my blog. Yeah, it works. So this is my blog. Okay. So type tiny.cc/capital RIYAZ. Enter. After that, it will take you to a link that does not work. I've kept it like this because I don't want everything, like everyone accessing my blog. So replace this INC over here, the first word, with R1YAZ. Oh, yeah, yes, ma'am. No, this is fine. Hmm? So in this blog, I have a list of all the learning resources that I use to study. Yeah, if you go to this learning resources and then go to career and learning resources for cybersecurity, you have a list of everything that I use to learn security over here. So each of this will take you at least 2 years to study. So for the rest of your life, you have all the learning resources you need. Go into development and then go into security. No, or it might work for other domains. I can't speak for it, but for cybersecurity, what I can tell is, if you go directly for a master's, your work experience is still going to be a zero. When you come out, you're still a fresher. Where a bachelor's student stands and the master's student stands is going to be the exact same, except that you maybe know a little bit more than him, but you still don't have that reason for me to hire you, right? Which is why I'm saying after bachelor's, if for cybersecurity specifically, do projects like the one I said. If you can show me that, hey, if take my web application, I know how to secure it, or at least I know certain tools which I can use. For example, now you know Bandit. If I were to interview you and say, hey, my like web application is built on Python, how will you secure it? All you have to do is mention Bandit. I'll be like, okay, this girl knows something about security. Remaining things I can take care. Once you come into the organization, we'll train you. So the difference between an academic setting and a professional setting is, in the academic setting, there's a disconnect between the industry, which I think SNU is trying to bridge. I think the syllabus goes through a yearly review or something like that. Yeah, so that is really good because you're trying to bridge it with the industry as much as you can, which helps. So do projects. Simply saying, anyone can answer what is DNS. For example, if I ask you what is DNS right now, yeah, like what is DNS? What is DNS? I know the definition. Exactly. So during interviews, if I ask you this, you can tell me this. But if you have, what would interest me? See, I've taken interviews. What interests me more is the projects that you've done, how you've applied this knowledge. Simple project. If I make a push request to my GitHub, I want an SMS notification. It takes 10 minutes to build. That's it. But it's a very valuable project because it shows that you know SCM, you know cloud. These two concepts are covered in one project. Now, don't come to me and ask how to do it, that you explore, but it's very, very simple, is all I'm trying to say. Explore my blog more. I'll show you. Oh, I haven't filled all this. Okay, I haven't filled my blog yet fully, but so I used in my first year. Basically, I was exploring data science, TensorFlow, AI, and all these domains because I don't know what was my domain. So my second year is when I decided that cybersecurity is my domain after taking one online course. So if you go and search in Google for the complete cybersecurity course, Nathan Host Udemy, you will get this course on Udemy. It's for 400 bucks or something. So skip for biryanis and buy this course. And there are 4 courses like this: volume 1, volume 2, volume 3, volume 4. I did all the volumes. By the time I finished all the volumes, I was in my third year. So do all these volumes. It will teach you a lot about general security. It won't focus on one aspect. It will teach you network security. It will teach you OPSEC, which is operational security, which is also known. So basically, if you see my blog, if you type tiny.cc/rehards, it takes you to a blog that does not exist. But if you replace that word, it becomes active. This is OPSEC. OPSEC is where you um, you practice security in your daily web browsing. Right. For example, I've used a guest browser. I've not used an actual Chrome browser. So when I close this, everything vanishes. This is OPSEC. So all of this is taught in those 4 courses. Teach you a lot of other things, like about web application security, about Android security, malwares, reverse engineering. What are the canary tokens? Very interesting concept, canary token. How it works is, I'll have a PDF file on my system which says passwords.pdf. Okay, so if you're a hacker, you would open it, right? If you're a hacker and you have access to my system, what file would you open? Passwords.txt or some random other file. Passwords.pdf, because it says passwords.pdf. As soon as you open that PDF, I get an alert on my email that someone has opened the PDF. That's called a canary token. Yeah. So you can use these to set traps in your computer. If at all your computer is exposed and someone opens that file, you will like get an email alert. I have it in my Windows laptop in my home, not on this, but like this whole concept of canary tokens and all I learned from here on. This guy has 4 really good courses. After this, if you see my LinkedIn profile, it will tell you what all the certifications I've done, one by one in order. So if you want to follow the same line, but I can't guarantee an internship. And learn development, software development without DSA. I hate DSA, absolutely. So that's why I skipped it completely. But what I'm trying to say is, these days for software development, if you don't know lead code, no one's going to hire you. I don't even have a lead code account. Simply saying. So take one domain, be passionate about it, work super hard for it. I used to bunk classes to study security, is what I'm trying to say. If you're going to do something, do it properly, right? And my department gave me full support for that.